Well, using the young people to do your dirty work. This is a technique now that's been observed with these cult leaders. You use the young man to send uh, emails uh, to people, here in Central America to paint the picture as a response to us speaking out. You use the young person, one of the people that you have implemented, SD, from Belize, the young man, to send an email of a video, which you carefully constructed from private conversations of counseling sessions and private emails that were had with you. That's okay. That's the whole truth. And we're well aware that of your pattern of how you orchestrate bits and pieces. Hey, greetings. Can you hear clearly? Let me know if you can hear clearly. So give me just a signal if you can hear clearly. But you've used this young man to send emails to somebody here in Belize of the emails of the conversations that we have had. But there are plenty of emails we know that you have not included, just as well as the elder that passed. You've done sound bites of videos of him, and you did not include all that took place in that email. So they're sound bites because we were sitting in the room with several of those recorded sessions when you recorded them. So it's easy to paint a perspective. But again, this thing of using the young people, and I'm very observant as a woman, as a mother, of the pattern. And it's very important that people peep the patterns of these folks. Now, folks that have never been in a cult or had a family member in the cult, or who haven't done research on cults, because we know many of our folks can have a tendency to be very either lax or just don't take the time to do research when we are enticed by somebody's looks, their charisma, their land, if they seem to have lots of wives, or their accomplishments, perhaps many men, or in admiration of how many mates you have, or you being with your family. But again, people don't know the details, and as we've said in a previous video, you do not know these people that you see online. So a pattern, if people are paying attention, but this would be easy to go over anyone's head, is that the cult leader will use young people or new recruits to do their dirty work. They'll have them make testimonials of their healing, which quite often is subjective if you haven't had medical tests, or there are certain things that the body is going to do on its own. So this thing of this person healed me, this high priest or whatever healed me. Critical thinking, the body heals itself. The body heals itself. This has been proven in placebo tests, the power of thinking, the power of suggestion, but also the body, if you put it in an environment to heal, if you give it proper nutrition, sleep, rest, and sunlight, the body heals. You don't heal the body. Also, the body will heal if you, quite frankly, stop putting garbage into it. So this, when people are subjectively saying that this person made them aware of something, so that's how they healed. But healed is very suggestive. So someone that is young, they may feel their feelings are very valid, but they may not be fully clear on how they're being manipulated. And also, if you watch the patterns, many people want so badly to believe in something, and that is understandable because it's usually coming in response to either childhood trauma or adult trauma or lack of esteem because of decisions, maybe perhaps poor decisions that have been made, and then reaping the repercussions, and then as a result, feeling low esteem. That's understandable. So what most likely would be beneficial is for people to receive education and counseling, or to seek that out on their own. So with many of the folks saying that like they've come in with certain diseases, if people would come and do their own research and do their own healing work and change their own intake and their consumption of fruits and vegetables, and also understand that whatever you put into the body has to come out of the body. These are things that you have to go through, because no matter how much we pray and meditate, none of us get off of the hook or around decisions that we have made. But we're usually feeling so psychologically traumatized. This is where the predator will take advantage. I hope this is making sense. And quite often, especially out there in so-called the city or the jungle life or whatever, just out in life, in the busy city life, people are moving at such a survival pace and at work that people don't have the time to sit and speak with their young people or even really communicate with their family members. And quite often, our communication skills are lacking. Quite often, we've demonstrated that we can be very, and this is not a condemnation, but just emotionally immature, meaning that quite often when we're having uncomfortable conversations that are very confronting, we're often very triggered from trauma. So if a male or a female says something that triggers them, we start going off as if the past incident is still happening. So we're not able to have a clear communication to hear each other out and then come to some sort of resolution. People don't feel heard. And this is what can lead many young people to do drugs or alcohol, or because they're so traumatized mentally and emotionally, and quite often they're not acknowledged. So this is why many people will seek a father figure in a cult leader or in a gang. It's a very a natural need for communing with someone and feeling heard. And quite often in the survival pace that we're moving at, this is what gets taken advantage of. So getting back to using the young people, had this person send an email to somebody here in Belize with communications that were supposedly private. We all know that there are plenty of things that this cult leader is not exposing. Joseph Robinson, aka High Priest Kwatamani. We're also very aware the same young person that you're having to send these emails once when we were coming from the airport and we had given money. This young man is not aware of all the different transactions and all the money transactions that have taken place. So when you're asking these young people to do certain things or to stand for you or protect something, this is kind of where they're at a loss because they're isolated and all of their information comes through one source. So once somebody is emotionally attached, or a young person is attached now to this father figure, they will be so emotional and attached because he's feeling a need for a father that they will not cross-reference him. If they're living with the person, if they're constantly under watch and monitoring, they won't have the opportunity if they're cut off from an internet signal or they're cut off from the outside world. And once you're in it, it looks like one thing from the screen, but once you are inside of the cult and all the members tell on each other or seeking brownie points from the so-called cult leader, it's a very challenging situation to go out and cross-reference or to speak to your parents or to research other points of view on the cult leader. You know, I hope this is making sense. So the same young person was asking us, two women much older than him, you know, had given money for, this is one example, had given money for car fare from the airport, as well as having sent other funds that he is not aware of. And we are aware of that when his cult leader communicates with each person, he leaves pointed information out. So this young man is saying, we gave some money. And he said, after speaking to this cult leader on the phone en route to the airport, he says, come on, sisters, you know you can do better than that. And we're thinking like, really? So you're having training, we saw this while training this young man to solicit funds from people, right? So you're having people to do your dirty work without examples, or when we're understandably, people that have been in these cults are understandably upset. It may be hard for people to receive and have a picture of what is actually happening, because the manipulation is not a tangible, it's not something that you can see or even fully get a picture of if you're not inside of it. So again, that's why, you know, we're not into debating or going back and forth with people, because what we experience living inside of a cult with family members for over a year and a half, almost 2 years, is not up for debate from people who don't understand because they haven't been in there. So, you know, the pattern is that the cult leader will have people implicate themselves. So once these young people unknowingly start so-called admitting that they've been healed by this person, every time they do perform one of those actions, it makes them look a certain way, and also psychologically and mentally it bonds them to the cult leader, where they have a sense of loyalty to them. The same thing is with the so-called Jesus Christ simplex. Whether the Jesus Christ lived or not, it's more so the savior. It's more so this person has saved me. So it creates this whole psychological, mental, emotional bond that I should be grateful to this person. I owe them my life. I know my everything. And it's really it's orchestrated. It's casting a spell. And then, also understand when people are saying this person has healed me, in addition to the body being able to heal itself, there are some things that perhaps you may not be able to heal without a tremendous amount of work and research. For example, if you get a finger or a limb cut off, and I hear people traveling to different planes and so on, most likely that is some damage that will be irreversible. So also a young person, in terms of their maturity, may not just be sitting in acceptance of, I've made certain decisions, I exposed myself irresponsibly to certain things, and they may have just certain things that they have to live with, or they may have to do a whole lot of work because of ignorance, or because of just being irresponsible. Now there are consequences in their body they have to deal with. This could be all kinds of diseases, HIV, all kinds of different things. Or it's no less than a person that's been in an abusive relationship. It becomes harder for them to leave if they have children involved or finances. But ultimately, that allegiance plays off of fear that they would have to start over, and that they would have to do the withdrawal from the person, from the emotional attachment, from the vices, in order for them to heal. It's a tremendous amount of work. And many young people may not know where to start. But there's no way around doing the work that you need to do. And in the work, not meaning to be esoteric, that means the acknowledgement of certain things that you have done or that we have done to put ourselves in certain situations, and taking a full responsibility and accountability. But when you have to bow down and touch somebody's feet and call them a high priest and say that they healed you, no, not this person. So the young people, they're being manipulated. They're being manipulated, and unfortunately, they are young in terms of certain types of experience or frame of reference, but they're not too young to receive the repercussions of the choices, that they're making. So these young people, when the cult leader pattern, right? Learn to see patterns. That's the shortcut. Learn to see patterns. There are a lot of things you may not be able to see, but you can sense in your gut when something is not right, and you can sense patterns. A lot of the mothers who, whether they were eating meat or had perm or whatever, could sense that something is not right. What is espoused by the cult leaders is that these people out there in the death consumption culture out in the world, they're not qualified to see certain things. Sometimes even, a crackhead could be telling you don't go across the street because they saw some danger going on in that building. So it doesn't mean that they totally can't see. It's just that certain people may not be moving the way that they deem, as righteous. But that doesn't mean that they can't see. Obviously, as we experience, you could be doing some very unrighteous acts while having locks and eating raw living fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. That's what has been experienced. And something that this cult leader would say is that other people are not qualified because of the way that they eat. That's subjective. And once these folks have been isolated, young people in particular, and grown women that are there, his mates, once they have been isolated, once they have been positioned where they're impregnated, once they have given over their bank accounts and all their resources and their assets, and they're older, so the police can't go and get them. This man has been doing this for a long time. He's a professional. As are many cult leaders. If people would do their research and not just play to personalities, there's so much information that's out there with these different cults that is actually mind-blowing. So when people are going back and forth, people need to do their research, because there's evidence of, say, for example, and you censor for yourself of, for example, that I just saw of Dr. York, some of the victims that witnessed children with him and that were children themselves. So when they're saying that different people had their penises in each other's mouths, or being in the bed with other young people at the same time, or young children coming and saying that Baba had their penis in their mouth. Some children are born into cults and they don't know anything else. They don't have any recourse. Or another technique that is used in these cults is publicly shaming people. So these are things that intangibles that people don't understand when they're on the outside and they're being entertained, right? They're being entertained. We're in a climate of fame and entertainment, and people are so addicted to entertainment. Quite often, we don't have our critical thinking caps on. So people are not really closely paying attention, and there's so much that you can't see. So I wasn't there. I know Dr. York, but I remember pictures of him, and this is not a bash on him, but this is now as a mother putting all the emotions aside and thinking and observing critically. That when you have people that were young, there might have been some people that were 13 or 14, but he had I don't know how many 100 counts or 50 counts of molestation. Once people get us involved in the rhetoric, it's easy with semantics and words to get us off track. Did this person have sexual intercourse with minors and children that were 13, 14, 12 or younger, and have anal sex with them or not? That's it. It's questions. When we start playing with, oh, this was his past, so does that mean the person is not accountable? Where, as a community, are our critical thinking? Are we saying going out and lynch people? No. But this is saying, number one, we're not acknowledging dysfunction and we don't have any accountability. So quite often, many women or people are made to feel like they're snitching when you go and you look for some kind of recourse or some kind of justice. And the Afro-diasporic community is so all over the place, partially because of our history, and also because there's certain work that we have not done in terms of just sheer acknowledgement. If we don't acknowledge that we have a problem, there's no way that it can be addressed or any corrective action can be taken. And quite often we are in a lot of denial, and we are quick to point the finger at quote unquote white supremacy or systemic racism and stuff. Those things are factual. That is systemic. But we also have a cultural systemic thing of a code of not speaking up on molestation or pedophilia. And unfortunately, as much as we like to talk about the Catholic Church, it is being revealed on its own that there are cover-ups within our own community. Many women and mothers, for their own neediness, or for our own collective neediness, and for the trauma of not having our men around, or turning a blind eye, or falling victim and falling vulnerable to being manipulated by men with crafty language. So we're also equally responsible in not speaking up and not cross-referencing the character and the actual behaviors. We fall too much and manipulate it into the justifications and the rationalizations for sleeping with a child because of money, or we don't have the money to feed this person, so we need to sell them off into marriage. So perhaps those traditions don't need to continue. Those traditions do not need to continue. If we're melanated, Afro, diasporic or not, there's some things that we don't need to continue. So if we want to claim Kemet and claim the ancestors and call on their names and say that we were evolved in a civilization for thousands of years, then I'm sure there's certain behavior practices that people chose not to engage with once they figured out more. So again, back to this using of young people, patterns. Are you following, along? Hopefully this is making sense. I want to make some distinctions that I don't think in all the debating and the going back and forth, and with people understandably heated, that are not being addressed. So I'm offering a perspective as a adult woman that is not in her 20s, not in her 30s, in her upper 40s, and going towards 50. So there's certain things in terms of life experience and wisdom that I have been exposed to. So please share this with young people, especially young women, because again, the time is not being made for us to have critical thinking communications that are very clear and not are so esoteric and talking about chakras and vibrations and stuff. Sometimes we're just not speaking plain Black English, right? Our own dialect, so that people are clear. And quite often, adults are not descriptive because, again, we're covering, or we think that people can't handle it, or out of embarrassment. So, one of the patterns that we've seen is that this cult leader will have the young people, the young men and the young women, so vested into his own children. So, all those makes he has a bunch of his children around. Once they start having the children, him integrate, with the children, because you have to earn the right to be with the children. Safety wise, we get it. But once they start sitting on your lap and hugging you, and you get emotionally vested within the whole community, these are things that emotionally and psychologically will make it very hard for a young person to walk away, especially if they felt that they were not connecting, or that they were not acknowledged or validated in their own birth, blood, relative family. So these things become very attractive, and they also play to things that people feel they didn't get as a child. So in experiencing that with another child, it's providing and serving a need. Yes, yes. He did get out. Yeah, my son did get out. But all of us, even today, it was like, in recent times, for me to even say that it's a cult. It's almost like, because I consider me to have pretty good sense, but the more and more we're out, I'm like, it was a cult. It was a cult. The secrecy, the way we were all kept apart, not allowed to speak to each other, to compare any notes, the way everyone, people were being pit against each other. Literally, other families would be told things about us, and we would be told things about them. So we were literally pitted against each other. It was actually crazy. So he finally did, because I was not going anywhere. I was not going anywhere. Although there was a lot of pressure for me to leave, to shut up, indirect threats. I'm a mother. I'm a mother, so I wasn't going anywhere. But I do want to just point out patterns. I think it's very, very important to distinguish patterns, because that's what people can't see. Or it's like when you're younger, in your 20s, there are certain things you may not be able to articulate. Life experience and wisdom from life experience will allow you to be able to clearly articulate. No need for a whole bunch of big, cloudy, vague words, but you can articulate and speak more to what is happening to you. So a pattern and a technique that's used is to also publicly shame people, because this man initially, as a father figure, you confide in him, you feel like somebody is really listening to you. Meanwhile, you're being audited, so all this information is being collected, and the information either slighted, hinted around being exposed in a public space, or you're publicly shamed or poked fun at in terms of health conditions, mental conditions, making people scared to ever leave the compound or the group. These are distinct techniques that are used in cults. So when you're publicly shamed, these are emotional triggers that are used on people. For example, this young man, this person, this so-called aka High Priest Kwatamani Joseph Robinson, he's extremely strategic. So once he had these young people mate, and just be waiting for this, this, nothing wrong with it, but these vegan virgins who haven't been exposed, to the outside world. This is what is dangled in front of the young people. You can have a mate that's not going to give you any problems, and it's going to be harmonious, and it's going to be so much better than what your parents had. It's not a bad thing to aspire to. But once, the other part that's not being told is the control of these daughters through the mothers, which is controlled through the cult leader. So they are unwittingly being implicated and becoming involved in things that this man has them to do. And once they're in too deep, like we could clearly see that this man would have them mate with their children, and he could always say, well, you knew, eventually, because you can see around here all it is family. But once somebody is in deep and they have children, somebody's going to have allegiance to their children. That's what they're protecting, more so than him. So it's just so slick. And it's so crafty, because what mother is going to walk away from her children? Usually, she's not. And so now, when these young people are in the cult and they have children, and they've already been indoctrinated with bowing to this person, yes, high priest, been isolated, not allowed to cross reference his character, his behavior, may not even know where to go to cross reference him. They're in deep, and they're also isolated. They've been in a position where they have made public statements and mating ceremonies and unions in front of their now family members. Now the family members are finally invited, so their family members who have been wondering what has been going on with their children have been isolated. Their adult children have been isolated out in the bush, and have no idea of what the process is. Their young people, young adult children, are not going to tell them, and these are folks in their 20s, so legally, um, they can't be touched. But once they have made these public statements, and over a period of time, a process been um, totally cut off, and they have cut themselves off from their family. Now they're in a position. And it's, I totally comprehend, and I have compassion. I get it, why it's so hard to get out. Plus, there's just so much stuff that people won't see. The parents of these young people don't know what to do, because you can't tell your young person what to do. Um, and it's just, there's so many intangibles. They're so vested into it. Eventually, parents that were not down with the cult, the longer the young person that's in there is used to lure siblings in, and is used to, when they invite a sibling in. And we've watched this. The parent that was initially like, I don't want this person in my son's head, and I don't want my young person, my son, to be a part of this cult. Eventually they use the young person to bring their siblings in, and eventually, over a period of time, over conditioning, they'll say, well, my son didn't see anything, not understanding the process inside of the cult is to keep everyone separate. That's how it works. So when people want to talk about Illuminati, Masons, and these different levels, it's really just a matter of, there's a lot of information that different people are not exposed to. So the more you give loyalty, the more you will be exposed to. So really a lot of subtle stuff that people wouldn't comprehend. People on the outside just don't understand how these cults work. In actuality, there are quite a few parents, as much as this Joseph Robinson, High Priest Kwatamani, wants to say that he has a pristine reputation in Belize. And, there's quite a lot of people that, are aware of his age, up in his 70s. And it's unfortunate. Some people are just waiting for nature to take its course, but people are underestimating. We underestimate mind control. Whether it's a black version or a white version or whatever, when you're manipulating people's minds and you're manipulating their lives, a lot of times the results, are the same. So I think it's very important for people to realize that. And again, this is harder to distinguish in your 20s, that quite often you're trading off one method of mind control for another. And he can't live forever, I know, but that's what some of the parents are saying. Will his wives be in charge? They might. From what I observe, he's moving to position the young men with the greatest degree of loyalty. So every day, this man is very aware of his mortality. So he's putting, I bet it won't be one of his dumb wives, because he's teaching male dominance. He is. And, as much as I was heartbroken by the behavior and the brainwashing of the females, I can't even I can't even sometimes just bring my being to just call them dumb, more so than ignorant. Because I think, I don't know, even though when you think about it, how can we be so dumb? I think it's the energy of condemning or witch hunting that is not effective in it makes us take sides, right? And so to make us take sides with people and personalities, rather than be clear on what the objective is and what we want to happen. We are all of these different things. We're very, very emotional people. We're emotional to the point where it cancels out our logic. And on the surface, you would seem that there's so much respect for females. I mean, I thought, oh, he's really respecting females. Once somebody even commented, in one of the videos, look at all these women carrying this man, carrying Joseph Robinson, like a king. And he is a king. He's worthy of praise. Now, back then I could have rationalized, well, if you got this whole community eating living foods and people are working out here and you have all this harmony, then hey, you get some respect. You could get some respect. But there's so much that you can't see unless you are deep in it and you live with the person and you can see their patterns and how they speak, So I don't know. I would say more so than dumb, because these women are highly intelligent, and that's why sometimes we give intellect too much credit, because a lot of women in there have double degrees. These women with tremendous assets. So I don't think it's dumb, with all due respect, and I appreciate your perspective, and all of our perspectives matter, that it's not dumb to want to have a mate. It's not dumb to want to live in nature and to want to have community and share. That's not dumb. It's the most natural thing to have love and have trust and be in a safe community. As a matter of fact, a lack of that is what's driving a lot of us crazy into being in a position, book sense, no common sense. More so, you know what? I would say it's more so. Well, one other thing I just want to say is, before I continue, is that what parents, and this is something, I don't know if these parents, all the parents of the young people, particularly the Belizeans, excuse me, or the young adult mates, they're not even young adults, but the older mates that are in there. A lot of them all have been estranged from their families for years. But I think we underestimate the amount of psychological, mental, and emotional damage that takes place in a cult. The amount of psychological, emotional, and mental damage, and people are coming already traumatized and feeling broken and a lack of esteem. And so there has to be a comprehension of that. I think, I'm observing that will potentially be more effective than it's going back and forth and blaming, like a real understanding and a comprehension. Because it's easy to look at this group of women and say they don't have common sense. Actually, they do have a degree of common sense, but what is manipulated is their emotions and their desire for family and their desire for community. That is what is being manipulated across the board with mass populations through religion and semantics and slick words. So, and just saying it's book sense and no common sense, that's one of the ways that actually I have to say that we can all get got, because it's easy to think that can never happen to me or that can never be us. And it can, because it's playing on like the reptilian part of your brain, like the primal part that overrides all intellect and what you will do in a certain situation if you are scared or you're fearful, because they're basic fears, right? Of old age, poverty, disease, loss of love, never finding love. There's at least six basic fears that we have all been manipulated. So we would do well to benefit to have a basic understanding of human psychology. We're not, it's interesting. I was saying to my sister, we are so ritualized out. We are so into the rituals, the ankhs, the bindi on the head, lock jewelry and African fabric and African dance class, and saying we're from the ancestors. A lot of times that is also canceling out our common sense, because the ritual gets us emotional. It's like speaking in tongues. It's so much, there's so much emotion. You've had this experience now that becomes even a physical experience that you can't, quote unquote, you can't deny. And that's what will cancel out common sense. And more so than common sense, the critical thinking, So I think it takes an effort for us to use language that is more effective. It takes something to pull back and think about the words and the meaning. Quite often people get into etymology, in the root of the words, but on a common sense level, like an effective, are we being effective? Are we able to look at our results? Because what do we want to happen? We want people to be educated so that we can make better decisions in our choice of a mate, who we let into our psyche, white or black. Are we trading off one version for another version because we like the skin color or because we like the outfit? So it's the critical thinking. This would apply to folks in the hood, who, women or men who we're sleeping with, right? Quite often we don't think that that's because of a lot of trauma. So quite often we're looking to feel affection. We don't want to necessarily be parents at the time, or we're not screening people and their behavior. We're not screening people's character. So we've experienced a lot of trauma, and whether we started it or whatever wasn't our fault of molested or slavery, the descendants of slavery, it's our life is our responsibility. So responsibility in taking the time to comprehend and understand so we can apply corrective action for us to be make an effort to be calm and to think things through and think what do we want to happen so we can be just thinking individuals, what do we want to happen? Quite often we're just constantly all day just triggered by our emotions, and it's understandable in terms of things that have happened to us, but we could just choose to stay in the cycle of mental torture and trauma, and what that does is just drive people more towards cults, towards somebody I can make you feel better, I can be your father. If people would do their research so they could see the patterns, this would educate people so much. I had a mother say the other day, and then mind you, her her adult son is still within the cult, and said, well, and I get it. Her son is in there. My son was in there too. I had to leave at some point, and we were kept apart. But as long as my son is in there, I have to deal with these people. And I feel like I read up enough. I read up enough on cults. Because sometimes we just don't want to deal as a people. We don't want to deal. We don't want to deal. We don't want to believe that somebody that we trusted in. You don't want to believe that your husband or your wife could do this. You don't want to believe that a babysitter could violate somebody. You don't want to believe the minister could do it. You don't want to believe the high priest, could be a scam artist. But the not wanting to believe is not grounded in logic. That is grounded in emotion. And so we're not understanding language, and we're not developing our communication skills and an emotional maturity. So I'm just sharing from my simple perspective what the patterns that I'm seeing. I have tremendous compassion for the parents that are in there, but I'm also understanding there is a degree of responsibility for people. There's still something working in there, but people are being implicated and being involved in the scamming. So once they have children and have taken part in certain things, if you even listen to some of these cult leaders or people that have killed for other people, if you do your research, like let's say with Charles Manson, there was some people that said, I knew what I was doing was wrong, but the pull for a family, the pull for all these other things emotionally, this intense need that overrides all logic, that's emotionally, that is even chemical within the body and the brain. That's what's being tapped into. So I think it's going to require us to really mature up. And it's challenging because I tell you something, that was just a straight feeling anger, and not feeling good about folks minimalizing my anger and telling me I don't have the right to be angry, or it's not spiritual to be angry. That's game. From religion to cultural, just do a ritual and no. So your feelings, because your emotions are common sense. Yeah, it's blind loyalty. I'm also making the distinction that over time we're choosing blindness because of the emotional lack, and for the trauma that people just want some kind of relief, right? They just want some kind of relief from their father not being there, or from these old, demons. And that is what makes us vulnerable, because we are not honest. So we're trapped in the past. The blind loyalty, where is it coming from? It's coming from trauma, and while we as a people try to make it logical, it's not. Emotional trauma, mental trauma, psychological trauma is not logical. It's like folks telling us to get over slavery. When we can more in these times articulate the things that are systemic. Even many people of other persuasions have to admit to the different types of things, atrocities we've been exposed to. Okay, yes, other people in the world, but we're speaking to what we are experiencing. That is undeniable, but it's our responsibility. It's going to take something. It's going to take us to really mature up and to speak up, because, not having a blind loyalty because something is black. I'm not going to speak out on pedophilia because it's black. I'm not going to speak on pedophilia because, it's my boyfriend. I'm not going to speak on this violation or scamming because, it's my mother or my father. So could we really call those blind loyalties? A young person, all they know is their father. All they know is their parent. So to a certain degree, the loyalty is built in, is natural, because this is the person that's been feeding you, so it's almost like being stonewalled on so many sides. I've said to my sister often, it's like these different camps, or these gang leaders, if you will, competing for the minds and the souls of the women and the children and the young males. It's a competition. It is not the white supremacy. It's the solarized or the melanated egomaniacs. But the only way to move forward, at least that I see in my humble observation, is for us to take the time to acknowledge the emotional trauma, or to acknowledge the ignorance, to acknowledge when we have not done due diligence, or we have not wanted to see, not cross-referencing, not sharing information, not asking questions because we're too afraid to be. Embarrassment is a big one. There is a fear. That's one of the basic fears, is fear of criticism, which I would say would go with embarrassment. So that's a basic fear of human beings. People may not want to say fear of old age, poverty, death, disease, criticism, and things is one more. But these are, I'm a mother, and I'm speaking, there's sometimes where I've been extremely uncomfortable. It does not feel good to have melanated males come at me and tell me to mind my business. This goes to show you the lack of critical thinking. When I lived within this cult, I sent barrels of food to this cult. I worked fundraisers by myself and created fundraisers for this cult. I brought my family members into this cult. For somebody to even tell me to mind my business, you know what I'm saying? I'm not a world star hip hop, person, or someone to tell me when you're angry to say that you're rough around the edges or that you're ghetto. No, it's just that I'm clear. So their words are just energy, and for people to minimalize your experience is a form of deflection. So I'm going to share. I'm going to, because I have to. Again, it's like folks being molested in your presence, and and you don't say anything because you're just hoping that what you saw or the pattern that you see is not so. And again, I really feel for these parents. Because again, I was in there as a parent, and I encouraged my family to come to Belize, my son and my sister, with me. And we came with resources, which is to our advantage. We came paying our own way. I did not come and take any living foods classes from this person because there was so much I was already doing on my own. I even had backup plans, of money and stuff. So those were things that I would definitely recommend to people in terms of corrective action, to make sure that other people know who you are. You got a backup phone, a backup way of communication. These are things just when you're younger, sometime in your 20s, you're not thinking, or some people that are older are just trying to escape a situation, or maybe perhaps to escape the consequences of choices that we have made. And so there the lines can get blurry. Yes, these cult leaders have their role, but then also, if, let's say, for example, we've eaten ourselves to a point of junk food emotionally, to a point where it's created a lot of waste and disease in the body, that's going to be a long process. That would take a lot of commitment to come out of that. We're going to be uncomfortable and go through withdrawal. If we are many of us are I don't know if the word is disenfranchised, but many of us are not in a certain position economically. It's like a puzzle. It's our life. We're going to have to figure out how to create something else economically that is honorable and that we enjoy as a people. We're going to have to, it's a puzzle. It's a life puzzle that it's because it's our life. We're going to have to figure it out. It's up to us to figure it out. So going to other people and expecting them to think for us is very, very dangerous. Fear of losing your greatest asset of your health. Yeah, the fear is driving us. And after a while, we can go to but so many lectures, and I know as a woman and mother, so many debates. But if I'm growing a garden here, at some point I got to go weed in the garden. It's stuff to do. And I could definitely say that I think it's important we come together. I can definitely say as a community, but I'm speaking as a woman and a mother. Something I encourage is coming together around the activity. rather than to have a bitch session or a complaining session, to what's missing, to ask better questions, or more, let me say, more effective questions, and think of what could we be doing, right? Because all the stuff that's going on, rent still got to be paid on the first. If you got a mortgage, mortgage got to be paid. Food has to be grown. Our health has to be attended to. There's so many activities that we're distracted from, and people want other people to commune and grow food with and do things with. But we would benefit from having a vetting process, that no one is able to go over. Everyone has to go through the same vetting process in terms of how do you qualify somebody you let into your psyche, that you listen to what they're saying, that you let into your pants, into your body, into your finances, into your family, around your children, that you listen to what they say. How do you qualify? You can learn from anyone, but letting them within your inner sphere and allowing them to give you direction. You might need to do, if there's anything valuable they have to say, you may likely need to use those tools or take that advice from a distance, and I like to say healthy boundaries. As a people, we need healthy boundaries. That's what everybody across the board. It's a social construct. Quite often, you just want to hug everybody and kiss everybody, and later on, you find out you don't know these people on the internet. You don't even know me. Many of us will be offended if somebody doesn't want to hug you, if children don't want to hug you. But I've observed it's better. It's very uncomfortable. We're some hugging, loving, emotional people. But perhaps it's better for us to go with respect more than like. So we allow ourselves, give ourselves the space to vet people and let people earn our respect. We earn the respect of each other. We earn the right to be in people's, in our intimate circles. Earn the right to sleep with each other because we're responsible. So hopefully folks are thinking critically. I encourage the youth to think critically. Please share the video with someone who will find value, because more than villainizing someone, it's the behavior. Because again, there's nothing wrong with Living Foods community, but the secretiveness, the manipulation, the money scam, the lack of transparency, that's what the problem is. And folks that are insecure and have low esteem, it's like many people, as I've said often to my offspring, if somebody lets you get in their pants quickly, that's telling you something. They don't have a high esteem or degree of care for themselves. Popular culture just tell you hit it, which sounds awful. But if they don't have a rubric or a standard for themselves, that's dangerous. That's very, very dangerous. If you don't have a standard, if you don't say this person has a pretty face, let me look at their character. Let me see if they prioritize their health. If they don't require you to use protection, or if somebody's going to question you for questioning them, that's telling you that this person doesn't have a deep level of care for themselves. So hopefully you get value out of this communication. I'm sharing because that's what I'm called to do. I'm nobody's guru. I don't have any organizations for anyone to join, or I'm a simple woman, simple sister out here living my life, wanting to grow some fruits and vegetables and enjoy the quality of my life. I've just gotten some serious life lessons, and I appreciate different elder people that schooled me along the way. And those simple people that gave me simple common sense wisdom, that's what allowed me to walk out of a cult, because I had a frame of reference. So I'm just paying it forward. But I'm not calling anyone a high priest. I'm not putting anyone on a pedestal. It's the behaviors. Do you think it's possible for a group of people with independent minds to form a thriving village? Anything is possible. However, I think, or I've observed, again, we are so enamored, sometimes even drunk with ritual, that we don't have a vetting process, and we haven't matured. We haven't developed communication skills, and we haven't developed some basic communication. So when we're in disagreement, or to how to come to a consensus around agreement, let's say a thriving village, purchasing property, was so emotional, was so triggered, that quite often the males and the females start fighting each other, the sisters start fighting each other because of suspicions and so on. So what I've observed at this point is that it would take for us to form clear agreements and to have conversations for example, should this village or should this not work out, then what is my recourse? What do I walk away with? We need to, let me not say we would benefit from learning how to make clear agreements. And this goes across the board with everybody in life. Because when you go to a store, clear agreement, a credit card, clear agreement, court of law, there are folks, they have legalese and legal terminology. Sometimes we don't even know what the heck is going on, which is why we go get a lawyer. But amongst ourselves, we've got to learn how to make clear agreements, right? If somebody's agreeing to something or somebody's committed to something, as one coach told me back in the day, you will usually see it in two places, in their checkbook and in their calendar. So if someone says they're serious about something, they're going to be making moves towards something. If someone says they have a business, but they're in the club late on a Sunday night and they don't have business cards and they're drunk, then you know what I'm saying? We haven't developed critical thinking skills, because it's true. They tell us, elders tell us when we're young, we see what we want to see. But this applies to people that may be chronologically older as well, because just because we're chronologically older, that doesn't mean that we have matured. So I think it's possible, but possible is not the biggest concern. I think, or maybe where we should have the possible just means you have a vision, if that's what you want. If that's something that we want, rather than talk around it or talk about it, then it will be on your radar. So the people that you are to form community with or to buy land with, or somebody that's going to look for land for you, you will be vested in having conversations, communications. You will be vested in doing the groundwork, doing your research, visiting. If somebody wants that, that's what we're going to go after. But again, in addition to the ritual, we are so in the habit of talking around and about. It's like when people say, you're talking at your children, you're not talking to them, you're not listening. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times we're also very non-committal in our language. We get very emotional and, we romanticize. That's what we romanticize a lot about something. And the reality, these are things that cult leaders will use against you and your ignorance. These are things that will push young people towards it, because it looks like, wow, well, everybody's talking. I'm gonna go over here because they have family community and they're in the jungle and they've got, 99 acres of land, and look what they're doing. So it looks, and when you compare the two, it looks so much greater to what people's parents are doing or what people in the city are doing. That's what these culture leaders saying. Like, you're talking, but I'm not saying to anyone in particular, but you all out there talking, but you're not making any moves. So I think anything is possible, but it's not going to happen without uncomfortable conversation. So if we can keep the communications respectful, just make an effort. This goes for all. Make an effort to put our emotions in a place where they are beneficial, right? Use the emotions to do a check-in if we're on the right track, if something's not feeling right in our gut. Because emotions have their place, but also so does logic. So I think it's possible, but it's not going to come without some work, without people understanding. You leave the United States. This is not the States. People are not moving on your time. When you just throw some dollars down and you get whatever you want. It's so many subtleties and nuances that we are not noticing in the United States. So we think it's easy to just, your money is going to buy you everything. But there's so much we don't anticipate. People, other places, they may not have a whole lot of quote unquote money, but they have family and community. Not to say that they're perfect, but they have another sense of family and community. And for example, being able to live in the same house, for whatever binds them, whether that's religion or tradition, or they have generations of people that may own land. So these are things, greetings, Adria. There are certain rhythms that we have not been inside that environment. And then also, here's the other thing I definitely have to say, as an Afro diasporan, from the States, Caribbean lineage of, folks, Afro diasporans from the States. My godfather said something to me a long time. He used to say, the Africans don't respect you, right? Those that were born and just coming over from the continent. He said, they don't respect you because you don't know your contributions, right? He said, you don't know if you contributed to the traffic light, the refrigerator. We're so busy trying to jump right over the continent that we're not acknowledging the things and the accomplishments that we have right in the States. You go all the way around the world to really appreciate your Afro culture in the States. We could call it Afro-American because all this stuff we get freaked out with words. Hey, Adira. Hey, I don't know if I know you, but and a simple way of saying is just appreciate your Afro-American culture, And when I say that, the perspective, because people play and change the context of words. Another pattern that we need to watch for is people manipulating the context and the meaning of words. So, there's such an appreciation for home, and the things that we enjoy from our culture that's mimicked around the world. It's like appreciating your hair. A lot of times we're trying to get away from this, and people around the world are amazed by it. That we're not often appreciating our uniqueness, and us not appreciating us, then we don't get respect because it's a vibration. We're not respecting us. We're not honoring us. So that's what we're getting out in the world. So because we're not appreciating, we don't know who we are and how we've influenced other people, and we're not in a positive way, we're not multiplying off of that, then we don't get respect because we're not understanding how valuable we are. I guess that's the simplest way I can say it. So if we don't know how valuable we are, then we don't carry that. And so we don't carry that. That's not how we treat it. Sometimes we are treated people like, wow, your hair is so beautiful. Wow, that's so wonderful. Your music is so wonderful. Wow. But in terms of our esteem and how we treat ourselves and each other, it doesn't show up. So that's it's a disconnect and a cognitive dissonance, and it's, honestly, we see it reflected in the world star hip hop and, the way we are allowing ourselves to be exploited for money in the rap industry, and people just so desperate for attention that we're not getting at home. Certain needs are not being met at home because we have so much immaturity in our community, and just immaturity in the sense where we're underdeveloped. So corrective action is not going to come without acknowledgement and without having uncomfortable, respectful conversations, because it's only but so much debating that you can do, because food needs to be grown. Our health has to be attended to, our mental health, our physical health. If we want any hope, we only have so many hours in the day. If we want progress, we're going to have at some point, we can't sit on YouTube, all day and just keep watching. It's like binge watching lock and natural hair videos and binge watching everybody around the world, travel and stuff like that. You come outside, you're going to get some information you just couldn't get from looking at screen. It's like with preparing food. I love preparing food. I say the food talks to you. There's so much you're going to learn by preparing your own food. So it's nothing nobody could tell you if you're preparing your own food. You know exactly what's in it. I know how the natural fats behave from the avocado and the coconut. So you can't tell me that this is natural or organic because I know it's artificial because I've had my hands in it. It's not to say I still can't learn. There, when you and your sister and son was living in the Kwatamani Gardens, how can I contact you on the phone? You can, if you send me an email. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. Please send me an email immediately. Info at bodyculinary.com or bodyculinary, bodyculinary at info at bodyculinary.com. Please, please. Oh my gosh, I'm ready to call my sister because this person was there. Do you know I was looking you up, calling you up. This is the sister that was there. Oh my goodness. I would love to give my phone number online. Please, I'm on Facebook. As Body Culinary. Please go there right now and send me a message. I will call you as soon as I get off of the stream. Because I've been wondering, there have been so many people, they pop up and they disappear in these cults, and I'm like, where are they? There's some. Please, sister, call me immediately. I will reach out to you. So on that note, I'm going to end the stream. If you found value, please share this with a young person or some parents, are going through it. It's really, I would say, all about, but definitely I'm speaking as a mother, as a person of the Afro diaspora, Afro from the States and from Caribbean parents. We have to have these conversations as women and accept our responsibility to raise the standard, because certain things may not be our fault, but our life is our responsibility. So take care. I'm looking forward to your call, Sister Adira. I'm gonna go over to Facebook right now. Okay, take care.